be true to yourself, be a good storyteller, and know how to use the tools and understand how the company you want to work with promotes themselves.
Hey y'all, this is the Fishing Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Angie Thompson. We talk a lot about marketing on this show, and I gotta admit, I tend to tie a lot of different subjects up with the marketing bow. To me, everything is marketing or sales. Commercials, advertisements, public relations, social media, magazines, apps, just about everything that has a communication element is marketing to me. Public relations is often tied very closely with marketing. They tend to walk hand in hand. Now, it used to be that public relations was the person or department or agency that wrote news releases and sent them out to the newspaper and magazines. They also took calls from the media to answer questions, and they got involved in some promotions and, of course, damage control if something went wrong. But these days, everything happens in real time, and somebody's blog or Instagram account can be the hottest news outlet of the day. That's probably why the PR agency industry has grown 35% over the last 5 years. So public relations is a critical part of any business strategy. This week's guest is a PR and media maven who has a deep background in the fishing and marine world and has worked for a bunch of different entities in the outdoor space. Her name is Dena, and we've got the chance to open a conversation with her about how PR and media fit in the fishing business in terms of brands and companies, but also how anglers fit within PR. Now, Dena mentors several up-and-coming anglers and folks that want to just be more involved in the fishing industry, want to work in it. So y'all listen up and listen to what she has to say. She's got a lot of advice to offer that will make you a better business person. Y'all ready? Here we go. Dena, thank you so much for being here with us today. We talk a lot on the telephone, and you're always going in like 40 different directions. So I was really kind of surprised that we could pull this together and you would have a spare hour to talk to us. So I'm glad you're here.
Thanks for asking me. This is a fun type of conversation in my crazy day.
Okay, I said in the introduction that you're the director of Fish and Marine Communications and the senior media buyer. I got to get you to unpack that because that's a mouthful, and I'm not even sure I understand exactly what it is.
Okay, well, we have both marine and fish clients and clients on the hunting side. So I manage, our whole gamut of clients on the fishing and marine. So that means boating. Yes, we also have, so there's boating and fishing would fall under that category. And then as far as media buying, I write strategy and then I purchase media for all of our clients. So that can be hunt, that can be fish, that can be boating, that can be outdoors, that can be anything like that. So, and then I integrate everything together. So we have our public relations and editorial side, we have digital social strategy, the media buying, and then I work with strategy and put it all together so it all works.
Yeah. Well, God, it sounds like you're the main cog in the wheel. But I do want to ask you this, and it's kind of, I'm asking you to say that again in a way, but not really, because at a very high level, like I always say, if I was from another planet, would you say, how would you describe, would you say, I help companies look good, or I help companies make sure their message is right? In a very, very, like I said, if I was an alien, what would you say?
I think I tell brand stories and I tell product stories. It's easy to say, hey, here's this new widget, buy it. But we together explain why you need it, the features of it, how to use it. And then we take that's like on our editorial side, we write stories about it. Then I purchase placement for ads, whether it's digital, traditional print, radio, OT, over the top advertising, anything like that, so that we can get that out to the masses. So, public relations means communicating a message from an organization or a company to the public. Mm-hmm. And the public can be the trade. The public can be the consumer. So, I'm working on talking to the trade to tell them what they need to put in their stores. And then I'm talking to the consumer to tell them what they really should buy for whatever need that they need to fulfill.
Right, right. Okay, and so how did you, I mean, obviously being a good communicator is key to what you do. Did you always know that you were a good communicator? And what was your career path that kind of got you here?
So the very beginning stages, so I went to school, I got my bachelor's in marketing and advertising. And my first couple of jobs out there, I worked in wholesale merchandising and retail merchandising.
So you have a good retail base to build on.
Right. And so then I went to work for a publishing company, which ironically worked with people that I later worked with fishing. I worked at Leisure Arts and Southern Progress ages ago. I'm going to show my age. And then went into tourism. So I was a Convention and Visitors Bureau director for a mid-sized city. I've worked as a director of sales for hotels. I started realizing that the jobs that I wanted to do, the communications majors were getting those jobs. It drive me nuts because I'm like, I can sell, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you want someone that can communicate that way to get these jobs?
Right.
So I found myself, as luck would have it in life, I ended up in Indiana. So I went to Purdue and earned my master's in professional communication. And while I was there, because of my hospitality background, I taught college at Purdue in the hospitality and tourism area. So when I got there looking for a job, I sent out resumes and told everybody where I had been. Mm-hmm. And people in the state of Arkansas asked me if I'd be willing to come back. And so I took the job as the communications director for the Arkansas Department of Parks and Tourism. Through that, I had a big fishing background. I grew up in fishing. I knew fishing. So I started working with fishing writers and communicators. And that's what transitioned me. I also, when I left there, I managed and ran a social media services company for about a year, and then dove into fishing freelance and then joined Traditions Media. So that was kind of the path.
That's a route.
And then I earned another certification on my master's for crisis communications. That's a whole other thing that I do
I might need your help on that. Okay. So if I'm somebody out there listening to this and I want to be a pro angler one day, or I am a pro angler, or I want to work in the outdoor industry, what do they have to learn from you? Why should they listen today?
A lot of what I tell them whenever they call me, and there's a typical complaint that comes with it. It's like chicken or the egg here. People now are looking for super pros. And that means you don't just go catch fish. You have to be a communicator. You've got to be a communicator to get sponsorship, for one. You have to know who to talk to, how to talk to them, and what they're looking for. And then you have to be a communicator to the public, because the public is looking to you for advice, and they want to know how you fish and what you buy and what you do. And unfortunately, super pros, that I call them, have to be great communicators, writers, editors, videographers, maybe know how to fly a drone, and catch fish. You know, and it's exhausting, and it's really tiring for them, because in order to hold your sponsorship, the days of, hey, you catch fish and you're on TV, I'm going to give you $20,000 and a bunch of product are over. They want social media posts. They want hashtags. They want stories. They want videos. And then I also work with the manufacturers to remind them that there are pros out there that still are on the radio. They're in the stores doing,
right.
And social media isn't everything either.
Right, that's right.
So I work a lot with pros that are wanting to get there to that next level, trying to help them learn how they need to do that. And then existing pros, trying to remind them, because they're like, I don't have time to do this anymore. I just don't. I'm winning. And I'm like, you're not relevant if you're not.
Agreed. This is my jam, girl. This is my jam. I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because this is what I love and what I preach every week. So we're going to talk more with Dena. We're going to take a quick break right here and come right back. I'm so excited because we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Our
really want to hear from you to know what kind of questions you have and how I can serve you best in this podcast. The easiest place to reach me is probably at Facebook or Instagram, where you can find me as Fishing Business Podcast, or on YouTube, but you'll have to search for me there by typing in Fishing Business Podcast. Holla!
Hey, we're back on the Fishing Business Podcast with Dena Vick, who is a PR maven. I love the word maven, and you're a maven. You're a PR maven, also a media strategist, and really just an all-around good person for you to listen to if you want to know more about how to be an effective communicator as an angler or a brand. I think there's some brand people out there watching too. So before we get started again, really, and get into it, Dena, what kind of fishing do you like to do? Because I know you're really into the outdoors.
Well, I started out crappie fishing. That was my favorite thing to do for a long time, and then I finally got a taste of everything else. So I love inshore fishing. I like bass fishing, and I like trolling behind my kayak. So
me too.
But I love doing that. So just about any kind of fishing.
So we've talked a lot about the PR side of this, but how does this, from the big picture at an agency, or how a brand uses a PR agency or a marketing agency, how does the strategist fit into their planning process? So I'm assuming that you make recommendations to brands on what they should be doing and where they should be doing it and when they should be doing it. And then, but when is that? What part of the cycle is that?
I used to say it's like jumping on a merry-go-round when you bring them in, because you really needed to start doing this 18 months ago, but you haven't. So it's like, we get it going, and it's like, we're going to jump on, and that's where we're going to start. But successful brands that we've worked with, once we get rolling, then they're already planning. Like, for instance, there are companies used to, if you look at ICAST, back, I don't know. Now I guess it's probably been 8 years ago. I'd say a couple years ago, but it's been longer.
I'm going to stop you real quick. ICAST is our annual trade show for the fishing industry. So it's not a consumer show. It's not for the public to attend, but it's where all the manufacturers go in the summer to show their new products, and all the tackle stores and retailers come to see the new products and write orders. Go ahead.
Okay. And this kind of goes with the classic, with Bassmaster Classic, which is a consumer show also, because some new bass products are debuted there. So you can also use it for that too. But back in the day, there wasn't a lot of social media, if any. And so a company would come to ICAST with a product, and 9 months from now or whatever, then it's ready. And then we make all the announcements, right?
Right.
Now, because of social media, it's there. The public wants it right away, but it's like, well, that's 2021 product. Why would we have it now? So what we have, it's like training and getting people ready, moving that back so that you have products that we can shoot to take pictures of by April of that year, even though they're not going to come out for maybe 18 months, promote them and have samples at a certain time for media. And I guess so what I'm trying to say is we jump on and we do the best we can, but once we're with you for a while, you start getting the company starts getting things ready sooner. We can start prepping people sooner. We get more information out there. We communicate better. And so the strategist makes everything start moving in time in the right manner.
Gotcha. I can see how you would be really good at that. So what is, and I obviously know this, but I don't know why I feel like I have to say that, but just to qualify that I do know this. But explain to the people listening what media buying is, because it sounds like something you could do yourself. Why would you have to have someone else do your media buying?
The easy answer is we buy space. I buy time. I buy places to advertise technically, but there's so many, it's not just ads anymore. There are so many other pieces to what we buy. But a media buyer communicates. I have to answer my phone, because the biggest complaint from people that sell media is that whether it's a marketing director, brand manager, whatever, they don't answer. And it's nothing on the manager. They're busy, right? And this is a salesperson calling. Right. So I'm almost like, I guess I'm the middleman, but I'm the person that's going to listen to them. Right. I'm going to get all the information I need. I put it all together. I figure out what the best strategy, the best plan is. And then I present it to the brand manager, the marketing director at one time, and we go through each piece and answer questions, and they can make informed decisions based on, I also have the strategy written so we can see where things fit. So they're not talk to 100 people or 50 people. They're talking to me that has already vetted everything to fit into the plan, and it streamlines everything. And then then I fulfill all the ads, so they're not being bothered about that.
Right.
So, it's a lot of communication, a lot of phone time, and relationships. If you've got good relationships, you've got good prices. You can, you've got a spontaneous promotion that needs to be done. I can pick up the phone. They're going to answer because they know who I am, or any other media buyer, and it just moves smoothly. When managers are doing it themselves, they've got 100 things they have to do and phone calls they have to make and answer. And then I'm on the phone all day long. So can you imagine what that brand manager's going to be having?
Oh, right. Yeah. So how do you work with anglers? Not in the media buying space, right? You're not really doing anything with anglers in that space.
Well, sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, because anglers also pros have TV shows. Pros have blogs. Some of them have newsletters and magazines. Sometimes I'm getting them to give me content so that I can place it somewhere. So, and the number one reason is that I need content and I need information. So if I've got an ad scheduled or an advertorial where we need story, or say we've got a product and I need a picture taken. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to love on a couple of pros that have helped me throughout the years. Stephen Browning lives close to me. Yeah. So and he worked with brands that I worked with. So if I needed something, and he's a super pro, I can call him and say, hey, I need this. Can you get this shot for me? Are you going to be on the water? Where are you going to be? And
he usually can figure it out.
You can figure it out. There's several of them that can. So sometimes I do, but how I just help anglers. I work a lot with college and high school anglers a lot. They'll ask, how do we get sponsors, or what do we need to do, and things like that. And so I try to help them. And there's a lot of youth that come up to me and say, how do I do what you do?
Right. Right. And that, that's interesting you say that, because that's with this podcast, I try to direct it at people who may want a career in the fishing industry as a pro, but also there's just a lot of people that like to fish that would just like to have a career in the outdoor industry. And so I always try to kind of layer that on too, because it's all very, very symbiotic, I think. But let me ask you this, in general, what could not your super pros, because they know what to do, but what could anglers do better when it comes to working with you?
Call, email, write. I've had more people, like I will go to association meetings or something, and a lot of times, and they'll get their feelings hurt. Well, I'm never used in any, and I'm like, okay, I know I can't say I'm too busy to reach out to you, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease, no lie. The pros that call me and say, hey, I just saw this new technique, or I've got a great story for you, because we're always looking for stories. We're communicators and we're putting out information about products. And if you've got a great tip, or you've got this great picture, I can use photos. And I think a lot of them, I don't want to say intimidated, but they're scared, or they think they can't reach out.
Yeah.
I try to, especially when I work for certain brands, I try to let them know, this is my email address. It's out there, and this is my phone number. You can text me, but I always say, you better tell me who you are when you text me. And I think it's fair. But reach out, and it's not just me. Company, if you're an angler and you're sponsored by a company or want to be sponsored by a company, find out who their agency is, or who their PR person is, or the brand managers, and reach out to them and let them know that you've got good information. Do not, though, however, never. There are some that think tagging me, a brand manager, is going to get their attention and you can see what they're doing. No, that's bad space. Unless they want to, or they're fishing with you, don't do that. Send them an email. And sometimes it takes several. Don't just send one. Send a couple, or get to that PR company. Get to them and talk to them. When you're at shows, if you're at the Classic, we're always out there. Come up to us and introduce yourself.
Yeah. It's funny how the same advice keeps getting given over and over and over again. And I'm like, wonder why people don't do this more. Like reaching out to someone in this industry is something that is said repeatedly. And I don't understand why people don't do it more. I tell you what else. Let me ask you this. What about returning phone calls?
Yes. Phone calls. And
we all have a problem with that. It's like, why would a pro not return your phone call?
A phone call? And it's usually, well, I'm busy, or I'm fishing, or I'm on the water. And I try to, I've got some that I do tough love, especially with my young ones. I can be a little more tough love. But, you don't know what they wanted. You know what I mean? We're going to film a commercial. We know that you're in this area. A shoot years and years ago, we were trying to get some boats in, and I couldn't get them from one company. So another had reached out to me at one point, actually mad at me for not being used once.
Yeah.
And so I called him and I said, okay, you tell me if I needed something. I hate to do this, but I need boats like in the next day or two. And he said, hold on. And he looked and he knew where his pros were. And he said, I've got this one, I think it was Edwin Evers actually, and he did awesome. He's up in Oklahoma. He can be there tomorrow. I'm trading out this guy this day and this guy this day. If those pros had not picked up the phone, they would not have been in a catalog for another company.
There you go. And that's so big. It's a big service you provide, not only for your sponsors, it's huge for them, but it's huge for you too as an angler. So you've got to return phone calls, you've got to answer your phone, and you've got to communicate well when you do both those things. Communicate well and quickly is what I say.
Ask, what can I do for you?
Right.
That makes us start thinking, and then I'll write down, this one's willing to work with me. And I may have nothing, and then tomorrow some weird thing like that, all of a sudden I needed boats, and these pros were somewhere near me.
I've told this story before, but when I was a TV producer for ESPN Outdoors, Gerald Swindle, back in the day, years ago, 20 years ago probably, he used to call me about every 2 or 3 weeks, and he'd be driving somewhere, and he would just call me and say, what can I do for you today, Angie? What can I get off your plate this week? And that was such a relief, because there were a lot of times when I'd say, oh, here, let me, here's what I need. Can you record something, or how does this work? Or, it's very nice to get those calls.
Yes.
So what is something that someone has done lately in terms of marketing and PR that has surprised you?
A good one is Nissan. I'll give a plug to them. So it was when COVID was really, everything was buttoned down. And I was walking my dog, and here's one on returning phone calls. Okay. This is happening. I look down and I see a Tennessee, Nashville area phone number. Then I went, it's not my phone. No, why not? I answered it. And it was Steve, who works with PR with Nissan. And he said, I've got an idea. We've got these automotive riders out there, and everything's shut down, but you can still fish. And I said, yes, you can. He said, do you think you can help me get some product in their hands? And because they're out there doing these stories anyway, but this gives them something to do, whether it's family or whatever. And I said, sure. So I started working to help them get the product. Well, then he calls me back, and I guess it was a great idea. So the other people in other regions were interested in it. And he said, we were thinking it might be useful if we could do a training class for them. So here's another one, pros that pick up the phone. So Fred Rabanus lives about an hour and a half from me. And I called him. We talked about fishing. I said, hey, I need help. We got on the water and did a Zoom call and had automotive media on the Zoom call. And we were on the water, and we showed them how to rig a drop shot rig.
Oh, that's great.
Because a lot of times people don't know, you see ads all the time where the reel's upside down.
Yeah.
It happens. So we showed them how to tie knots so that they could go out and do these stories. And that was, so there will be a lot of stories coming out. With COVID, fishing is something that is really, really taken off because it's something that families could do together and people could go out and do. And it was very forward thinking for Nissan to realize they should embrace it as well. So that was a pleasant surprise during everything that's been going on.
Okay, Dena, going back to sort of the strategy piece of this, and I'm trying to figure out how our listeners can get the best value out of our time with you today. But since you are known as being a strategist, what advice would you give an angler for developing a strategy for growing his brand and his presence in the fishing industry?
I say be a storyteller and know the tools, know how to use the tools to be a good storyteller. It's the reaching out too, because again, it's not just about social media. I mean, the social media is what everyone's looking at. It's the easiest way to monitor what you're doing, and that's why it's used, okay, as a tool to see if you're a great pro. And I do it that way because pro used to mean you're a great angler, right? But remember, it's pro means professional. And that doesn't just mean catching fish. That means working on a professional level in the industry, right?
Right.
So put stories around what you do. Make sure you have hashtags that you use. A big thing, know the hashtags that all of your sponsors or the sponsors you want to work with use, and use those correctly. Make sure you know how to spell correctly. And you know, if it's the biggest one I see is Daiwa spelled wrong. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, you've got to know how to spell these also. And then tell stories around it and know where you can hit it. Learn how to Insta stories are huge right now. And it's a good way to get a quick message up there. I will brag on someone that I work with, in full disclosure, she works with me. She's my media assistant. But it's Christine Fisher. And if you look at what she does, she's a great storyteller, but she also writes it out. And when I first started, before I even met her, I was like, woo, she's putting a lot of that on Facebook. Yeah. But it works, you know, and because if not, you're blogging and then you're putting it over here and you're putting it over there, whatever. She writes the story about what she did. She's running cameras on her when she's fishing. So she not only has video, but she can pull stills off of it because she's not a cameraman that follows her around all the time. She's great with social media, so she gets it up there. She also uses, you know, she then edits that video and puts it out on YouTube. But then she runs in and, you know, when I first started working with her, she goes, do I need to do all these podcasts? Because we go through and she'd get like, you know, 6 requests and she's like, oh, yes, you have to do every one of those. And then also make sure that you're not crossing over with brands and messing up anything you've got a contract with. Because anglers don't think about that, and they may be out fishing with because you may be sponsored by one lure company, but we know that one lure doesn't catch fish, right? You need variety. And so not all pros use the exact same thing that you know, from this.
Shocker, that's a shocking piece of news there, Dena.
Well, but you need to be cognizant that cameras could be on you at any time.
Right.
So you need to also make sure you don't just take a check. You know, you need to sign with a company that makes products that you do believe in, that you will use all the time, and you can talk about it on the fly and you don't have to think about it. And I see people that will sign with a company sometimes because they did offer them money, but they don't know if that product works for them.
Right.
And then they find themselves in a mess. So, you know, be true to yourself. Be a good storyteller and know how to use the tools and understand how the company you want to work with promotes themselves with hashtags or things like that.
Rick Clunn talked about that for you listeners and viewers out there. Rick Clunn talked about this same subject, especially about how to be true to yourself and have integrity when you select your sponsors. If you haven't listened to his episode, you should go back and listen to it because he's like the king of having integrity around who you partner with. So what lights you up right now in the fishing world? What do you get excited about? Technology.
It's shocking to me when you think about, for instance, a fishing reel, right? I have the pleasure of getting to work with Daiwa. And at the Classic last year, Kurt took me through and I filmed, and he's showing me the technology, you know, to keep the reels so there's no, you know, backlash and all this stuff. And I'm like, how in the world do people come up with this? And then, you know, fishing rods, the technology that goes into that, and then lures. Don't even get me started on lures. And there's so much innovation. And the people that just think fishing is just, you know, these little things that look like a bait and a cane pole
and a bobber.
Yeah, it's like, and then electronics. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean? A lot of people, I think, on the outside, they just think, oh, it's fishing, you go catch fish. But there's so much technology, and the new things that are coming out are just mind blowing.
Well, and really, it makes it's not a simple sport. It's a very, very complex sport, and there are things that you can control, and there's things that you can't control, like the weather and Mother Nature. But more and more, the things that you can control, which are your boat and your equipment, are getting more and more complicated, and you have to really understand. It takes a lot of work to understand all of that, really.
You write the stories trying to explain it so that you can make the best decision on what kind of reel you buy or what kind of reel. The other thing that really excites me is the women's movement.
Yes.
On another podcast, but there are so many. Well, I get asked all the time, man, how in the world did you get in that? It's a man's world. And I'm like, you know how many women make those products?
Right.
There are a lot of women that are the people manufacturing these products. There's a lot of women that fish, and there's a lot of us that are in business that have been here for years, but now more and more are coming out and getting excited. And, it's like, I've worked with you for how many years now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's don't talk about that. Let's don't talk about how many years it is. Okay. We're going to take another break here in just a minute. But before we do, Dena, is there anything that I should have asked you so far that I just didn't know enough to be smart enough to ask?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Then we're going to break for a second. Be right back. The Fishing Business Podcast with Dena Vick. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, check out fishingbusinessschool.com, where you can see video uploads of the podcast, as well as my blog, where I give you more practical advice on the business side of fishing. fishingbusinessschool.com. Come see me over there. We're back on the Fishing Business Podcast with Dena Vick, who is all around, I'm going to call you just the Renaissance woman, y'all. She's PR, communications, marketing, digital strategy, print, all strategy, and media buyer, media strategist. This girl knows a lot. If you have if you're ever unsure about something in the fishing industry, she'd be the person to ask. So Dena, before we go here, give us a snapshot of your life outside of work when you're the happiest.
I love to garden. I love to plant things and garden, and I'm a cyclist. So I love to ride bikes. I used to try to say I attempted to be competitive and try to race. I was very, very good, but I love it. And so I spend a lot of time on the bike and gardening, and I love to fish. So when you work in fishing, you don't fish as much as you think you would.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I envision you coming up your sidewalk in your biker suit with your little clip-clop shoes on, pushing your bike, stopping to take care of some things in the garden, pick some vegetables that you've grown, and then you go inside and you call somebody up and say, hey, are we still meeting at daybreak tomorrow to go fishing on Lake Ouachita? Is that a good moment?
That works, yeah.
There you go. All right. The last podcast you listened to?
Biz Chicks.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, it's awesome. It's women. It's about women entrepreneurs and how we can be better in business. And lately, she's been really focusing on social media and different things with Facebook and Facebook ads and LinkedIn. And
I love asking people this question, and I love it when they tell me about podcasts from other categories, because I've actually had a very good friend here send me a couple of podcasts to listen to that were in the real estate category, but that applied to us. That I totally got and totally understood and was like, thank you so much for sending me that. So it's always good. I'll link to Biz Chicks, right? Biz Chicks? I'll link to that in the show notes so you guys can find it. What's the last TV show you binge watched?
One of them, because that's been my release lately, is binge watching stuff that I wouldn't be watching. In the Dark. Have you heard of that one?
I have, but I don't know what it's about.
She's blind. And her friend's murdered, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it in the first season. The second season, the whole thing to me is communication. Because they don't communicate, they get in all kinds of trouble. And so it's different in the second season, but
Interesting that you would pick that out. So who's your favorite person or brand to follow on social media?
Oh, there's so many. I like, I'm going to say it wrong. I think it's called Sea Sucker. I think they do attachments for everything, like on your cars, your electronics, your bikes. Their social media posts are awesome. And I like Black Rifle Coffee Company. Their stuff is awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'll link to that in the show notes too, because I think it's always good when we follow other brands. It can inspire you for an idea that you can use, don't you think?
Oh, always.
Okay, and then finally, the best business advice you'd give someone who was just starting out.
Find someone that seems like they're doing it right, and get to know them, and find a mentor. Like I said, I can't go out and find everybody, and I'm not saying pick me, but I'm trying to do my best. It seems like we have a gap, especially in fishing. There's an age gap. There's a blank there on age for people in this business. And so I'm doing my best when a young person comes up to me and says, how do I do what you do? Or how do I be you? I'm taking time and I'm working with them. I've got interns now. I said I've got my assistant that I'm working with her and trying to teach them the business. And that's because they asked. So, study, read, whatever, but find somebody that you think is doing it right and talk to them and start learning from them. And it doesn't mean they're doing it right, but you'll at least learn. My best advice when I go into a business and I'm going to help them, and this works with learning to get into something too, I go in and I first find out how they do something. I don't come in and blow it up. How is this done? And I learn how they do it. Then I ask them why. Why do you do it this way? Because it may seem crazy to me, but there's a reason. And it may be something that doesn't matter, but it could be something that would tear up everything if you moved it. And then I make my change if it needs to be changed. But if you don't know how and you don't know why, you really can't make that next step or make a change that's going to work or stick. And it's the same way when you're trying to learn how to enter a business or enter a field or enter something. Find out how somebody does something, find out why they got into the business, why they do it that way, and then decide if it's something that you really want to do or how, if it's something you want to get involved in.
Very good advice. Very good advice. And in exchange for that, sometimes if you are trying to spend some time with a mentor or a potential mentor or somebody in the sport that you want to learn from, a good trade out to make with them is let me do something for you. And if you'll volunteer to do something for them, just take something easy off their plate that will make it easier for them to be like, oh yeah, I want to spend time with this person and give them some knowledge because I get something out of it too.
Absolutely.
Dena, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we will have you back for sure. I'd love to talk more about women in the sport and a lot of other subjects. It's just a short window here to get to talk. We barely get into it, and it's time to go. But I really can't tell you how much we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Big props to Dena for giving us her download on public relations and strategy. Okay, here's my 3 key takeaways from our conversation on how to work with PR agencies. Number 1, return phone calls quickly and communicate clearly when you do so. I can't say this enough. When an industry person calls you, it's so important to get back with them quickly, because if you don't, they'll just probably move on to the next person on their list who will respond to them. Even if you're just saying, I can't talk right now, but I'll call you back in an hour, respond! Exclamation point. Okay, number 2, be a storyteller and know how to use the tools to tell a good story. Another thing we talk about all the time here. It's so much better to be able to wrap the point you're trying to make into a story that will keep people interested, and that's what public relations is all about. Number 3, this one's more tactical. Know and use the proper hashtags for your partners or those you want to be partners with. People like Dena work really hard to come up with the high-level strategies that determine what hashtag campaigns a company uses. So it's really important to use the hashtag correctly, and it should go without saying, spelled correctly. Now that's a wrap on this week's show. I'm so grateful to you for spending your time here. I really am, and I appreciate you trusting me. As always, you can contact me on social media at the Fishing Business Podcast. And if you find something valuable here, I would love you forever if you shared it on your own social media. That's what will help me grow and continue to bring you this content every week. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up this week, just like Jerry McKinnis used to close out his TV show, The Fishing Hole, by saying, this is dedicated to Dad, because he always had time to take me fishing. See you next time, y'all.